Federal investigators seized 100 coronavirus test kits being shipped from China to a Portland apartment complex, according to a federal search warrant obtained by KGW. The test kits are unapproved, uncleared medical devices, wrote a Food and Drug Administration special agent. On March 18th, U.S. Customs intercepted the shipment containing 4 white boxes labeled COVID-19 Antibody Test Kit at the FedEx facility in Memphis, Tennessee. An invoice seized as part of the shipment listed the purchaser as a Portland resident, but the name redacted in the court record. The FDA investigator was not able to find any record showing the purchaser was a licensed doctor, nurse, or pharmacist. The invoice showed the test kits were shipped to a Portland apartment from Anhui Deep Blue Medical Technology in China. Deep Blue Medical, which advertises the test kits on its website, did not respond to an email seeking comment. The invoice listed the test as 50 cents per unit, or $50 for all 100 tests. That's far cheaper than a typical coronavirus test, which can run nearly $1,000 for a private insurer through an FDA-approved lab. 50 cents is ridiculous even for a swab, but for a test to actually give a result itself, it's a preposterous cost, explained a Portland physician quoted in the search warrant. A product with similar labeling and logo was featured in a tweet by a Chinese news outlet. The tweet promoted 15 minutes, new rapid test strips for coronavirus have been developed, along with a video. Federal investigators made it clear these test kits are not approved in the U.S. and prohibited from entering the country. It's not clear if any arrests have been made in the case. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.